Emotionally unavailable.
Welcome to Emotionally Unavailable, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of emotional availability and intimacy. I'm your host, Melissa Hepner, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have you join me on this journey of self-discovery and connection. Whether you're navigating the complexities of relationships or exploring your own emotional landscape, this podcast is here to inspire, empower, and entertain. So get cozy and let's explore the depths of human emotions together. Hey guys, happy Friday, happy lunar eclipse, full moon in Virgo. What are you cleansing and releasing from your life, I wonder? I'm just trying to, for myself, continue to release myself from perfectionism, release expectations, and any toxicity, I guess. All right, anyway. Today's guest is, we are back with Davina Hain, and this is our part 2 of our talk. And just as a reminder, Davina is an anger management coach. She also focuses on partnership, parenting, and life's general fuckery. She has a podcast called Shift Talking. She has a community called The Shift, and all of those links are in Wednesday's show notes and will be in today's show notes. And I would love feedback. I'd love to hear how you guys, what you thought about these conversations. I love Davina, and just feel really lucky to continue to connect with such amazing people. So, all right, I guess without further ado, here's me and Davina.
Emotionally unavailable.
Can you hear me?
I do.
When you look at that, plugging it in.
That's so weird that's how that works.
Isn't that crazy?
New age shit. What are you going to do? You got to plug the shit in. Good morning.
Good morning. I am, my kids, man, they're having a tough time transitioning, and it's brutal.
Transitioning from what? Moving or what?
Yeah, we just got here on February 1, and then they started school February 3.
Oh.
And then we all got the flu. And so
us too, yep.
They had one day at the new school, and then they were out for the rest of the week. So then the new week started, and now it just like the novelty of them being the new kids kind of wore off after they weren't there for a few days. And then, they're just having a rough go.
I feel you, dude. For some reason, my 10-year-old now complains all the time about going to school. And she just don't want to wake up, and also she's like tries so hard to be perfect at school that like she knows she's got to put all that effort and energy into it, even though I'm like, baby, listen, okay, so in Oklahoma you can get this much weather and you're gonna be shut in. So we haven't had school since Monday, right? Okay, so so we do virtual days, and she's learning really quickly about not being a perfectionist, because I'll be like, well, shit, baby, don't do it. I don't give a shit. Like, don't do it. Like, and I care a lot about her education. She's in 5th grade. Yeah. She's 10. I care a lot, but like, I also know you don't have to be perfect at everything. Like, if there's something like it's too much right now, skip it. Like, I'm constantly like, don't worry about it. So then yesterday she told her dad something. She's like, yeah, and I just, I'm not gonna do that. And I was like, good, because she wants to be perfect for her teachers. She wants their love and adoration and whatever. And
sure.
And I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you not to be that way, because I'm trying to meet you where you are. But also, what I will tell you is I don't give a shit what they think. So
I know. It's so hard because, well, also no one teaches you how to do this. Like I am growing up with my eldest, and then I get to raise my younger. And so
absolutely.
Even just starting school and what's expected, and I still don't know to this day whether I'm supposed to call their teachers Mr. and Mrs.
Baby,
whether it's supposed to
I
just
was a
be
teacher too. Like I
Yeah.
made this sudden career shift into education. Not a good idea. 3 years as a teacher, 4 years as a school counselor, and still I have such a trauma response being in front of the teachers because they're the authority of my child. And I was conditioned to care a lot about what they
Yes.
thought about you. And so I've really had to work through that this year because I don't remember if I've told this story on here yet, but it was kind of traumatic for me. Sometime after, like right after Christmas break, my daughter Charlie makes a shitty comment in the middle of kind of a tantrum about, yeah, and so teacher said something about me wearing shorts in the cold. Oh my God, it triggered every fucking thing inside me that I have worked so fucking hard, right? Okay, because let me just tell you, I let her wear what the fuck she wants to wear because I'm not fighting that fight. And so if you feel good in what you're wearing when you leave, that's the goal. Go do it, baby. In my heart, I question some decisions. I do. But baby, you feel good? Great. Well, so I get triggered and I'm like, what? And then I was like, see, this is the problem. And I was proud of myself because I didn't like go Melissa on it, but I was like being very vocal about the fact that this was triggering me. Yeah. And I was like, this is my problem is that like, oh, because what I left out is she got to go make a visit to the school counselor. Sure. So I was like,
based just on the shorts?
Yeah. Well, because she also she knows that a teacher purchased some shoes for a kid who couldn't get some. And so she played that angle up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, like money's tight, but like you need pants. We're gonna get you pants. Yeah. So my first reaction is, did you let her know that you hate all your pants, that you're the one who picked out? You hate them all of a sudden because you only want to wear my clothes? Okay. And then I was like, this is what's frustrating. Everyone says you don't have to worry about what everyone thinks and blah, blah, blah. And then I decide the first year I'm so good at not caring. And here we are. And I have this deep seated fear of DHS showing up to my house because of childhood shit.
Yeah.
So I like bitched about it for a little bit off and on. And then like I thought about it and I was like, okay, I'm going to let this go because even if DHS did show up, and granted, I've made those calls, they don't show up when you're beating the shit out of your kid, but they'd probably show up for this. Right. But what I decided was to chill the fuck out. And I said, Charlie, okay, here's where I'm at with this. I think your teacher has a different perspective because she's not a mom. And also, I think she takes her job to protect children like really seriously. And so that's fine. She felt like she was doing her job and that's okay. I'm not mad at her for that. Yeah. I said, good for her. Right. But like, what I am concerned about is you getting to this point of stress. Cause I did notice she was wearing pants that she liked, but that were way too small. So it comes out that's why, because she's trying to make her teacher happy. Right. And I was curious about it because I was like, baby, those don't look like they feel good, but if you want to wear it, okay. Well, so I was like, but here's what I would like to see. I would like you to stand in your own authority and say, I know that's how you feel, but I like my shorts, Mrs. So-and-so. Right. You know what I mean? And I was like, so fucking happy that I arrived at the place where I was like, okay, I settled my shit down so I could give her what she really needed, which was permission to be you, babe. If you like shorts in the cold, I said, let's think about this logically. I go, first of all, there's always those older people who are like, where's your coat? When a kid gets out of the car, and I'm like, let's think about this. The only time they're fucking outside when it's this cold outside is to get in or out of a vehicle. Or enter and exit a building. Y'all aren't letting them play outside at recess when it's that cold. And she do be playing outside here, but she gonna dress accordingly, you know, like whatever. But like, they're not gonna freeze to death in that classroom where the heater's way too hot anyway. I learned working in a school, I had to dress opposite of the season because when it was winter, the heat would make me sick. When it was summer, the air would make me too cold. So I'd have all my sweatshirts and, you know, and I would notice the kids doing the same thing. So I was able to ask my daughter, how is that for you? You know, blah, blah, blah. And then you kind of get a thing, but letting go of what like teachers specifically think about me has been a really huge process for me. And I was really, but then last semester, they just like it was parent teacher conference and we did a come and go with everybody else. This semester we've been asked to meet with the team. So I'm curious, and let me tell you, I fretted over that for fucking 48 hours where I was like, why? Like, what is it? Blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, yeah, I really don't care. Like, why am I getting all up in this freaked out energy? Because they're not going to do a team meeting to discuss personal issues or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if they think it's because of pants or whatever, like they're not going to do that for that. And if they do, that's fucking stupid and a giant waste of time. And then okay, maybe she's struggling in an area. She's a young 5th grader, like she's a June baby. And I hadn't wanted to start her, but we were having all these childcare issues and I was working in school. I'm like, well, she can go with me, I guess. You know what I mean? And so it was like, whatever. She probably does. She's been behind in reading since kindergarten because kindergarten's the year COVID like quarantine happened. So like, who cares? That I'm not worried about. We go, you tell me there's an issue. This is what we're going to do. Fine. But like, I don't need to assume that's going to be so that they can judge me as a parent. You know what I mean?
I know. It's like the minute I hear anything from the school or even I see the principal who I'm like much older than there's this part that I almost, I go right back into that kid. And I just feel like I'm asking permission and it's so uncomfortable. And then I'm also, again, trying not to have that carry over into my kids. And I was a very shy kid who was very insecure. I got teased from the time I can remember, right? And so I am trying so hard to encourage my kids and to give them tools outside of that. And maybe had I actually told my parents what was happening, they could have helped, but I didn't. And I just internalized it and held it. And now my son, he has his ears pierced. He loves it. He was begging for it for like 7 months. I was like, sure, if you still want it around the holidays, we'll do that. He went and got ears pierced. We all did our nails, as I shared with you. So he got like blue, like, what's his name? Captain America and Hulk colored nails. And he's going to school with painted nails. And he's just like, I'm worried that they're going to make fun of me. I kept my hands in my pocket the whole time. And in my mind, I was just like, okay, well, one, that's what I did. That's what I would do.
Oh, sure.
And also, no, not for you. And so instead I've been telling him like, okay, well, you don't like it. I do. And it's clearly not only for girls because I'm a boy and I have them. And also my dad, he's one of the manliest men you'll ever meet. And he wears jewelry and has his ears pierced and paints his nails. And who cares? Yeah. And so I'm trying to give them these tools. And it's just, my son and I were having this conversation last night and this morning where I said, if you are dreading going to school, if you're terrified that people are going to tease you, you're already living in that. And you haven't even given them the opportunity to tease you. Right? Like let them if that's what it's gonna feel for you. Yeah. But it's so hard as a parent that these are the things that nobody teaches us of one, how to heal our own wounds.
Well, I was about to say,
our own childhood.
No one ever says all the shit that you've ever been traumatized about as a child is going to come out of you in your parenting. And that, oh God. But you know what? Like, I can guarantee you, you're doing such a better job with your oldest than I did. I was using guilt and shame as a parenting technique because that's what I was taught. And literally, I thought, well, it worked well for me. I was the good girl. I was perfect. So and guess what? He was too. And then, you get to pay for their therapy is what you do. and
realistically, I think we're going to be paying for it anyway. Right? Like, this is what I think is what's best for him and all of that. I might learn that it's not. And, I keep this journal. My mom kept a journal to each one of us throughout her pregnancies and as we were growing up.
I love that.
Of course, I was the 4th in 5 years. And so mine is much shorter.
You got a few entries.
Yeah, I got some. And so I'm doing that now with my sons and I'm explaining the move and why we're making it and what we're looking to achieve. And hey, here's my thought process in what is happening. I don't know if this will benefit you in the long term. And here's what I'm looking to achieve here. And intention doesn't always match impact. And I'm aware of that. And I'm working with the intentions that make the most sense to us, that your father and I believe to be the most cohesive for you. And we might be messing up here and we just won't know until
and we're sorry
we work through it we
like
get through it. Yeah.
genuinely, if this impacts you really negatively, that's not ever what I wanted. And I'm sorry. And I'm going to be willing to say that even when you come to me when you're older. That's
Yeah.
been my thing, is like my willingness to be sorry. I did make that commitment to myself really early on, because that was the part. It wasn't even all the narcissistic shit I put up with up until a certain point. It was the fact that they couldn't apologize for any of it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know how it is with a typical narcissist, like you confront them and it gets real shitty. I mean, that's how it was. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. But I think for me, it's like, I'm just trying so hard to heal myself. I mean, it's forever, right? Like, it's never going away.
Yep.
But like, to be very aware anytime this stuff's coming up. And that's why I felt really proud for not exploding like I almost did about this school counselor thing. Because it was when I recognized that it got to that point, I was like, oh my God, all the what ifs, all the whatever. But just like, oh, okay, don't put your own shit here. This isn't about you. This was an experience your daughter had, and you need to walk her through that. And so I gave her a few phrases to give back to the teacher if she said shit about her wearing shorts, because she's not the only fucking one. Leave her alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I could see, like, with your son, how hard it would be to, because for me, I'd be like, okay, here's your options. Wear it with pride and understand that people who are saying shit are in one of two camps, but either of the camps, if you come back with bravado and truth and authenticity and like, hey, I like him, they're like, I don't really know what to do with that. In either case, like whether their intentions were bad or good, they don't know what to do with the fact that you're not bothered by their response to you. So they're like, hey, okay, moving on. That's a choice. Or fucking don't wear it to school. Like, why put yourself through all this shit, right? Like, you want to, but then, like, is it worth this? I mean, I don't want you to care what they think, but I also would rather your body not be in this state of anxiety. If this is what it's going to cause, then fucking don't wear it. I don't know what else to say. It's hard. Like,
no, I know.
Hard.
And it's so hard because that's exactly what this is, where like my mama bear comes out and I want to be like, all right, you fuckers, leave them alone, right? Like focus on different things. And then the other part is, well, when you don't like a certain food, you have no problem sharing, I don't like that. No, thank you. I don't want to eat it. Or when you do like a certain food, even if people are like, ew, there's still this part about like, well, I think it's yummy. I like it. And so I told him, I know that it's different when you're expressing yourself, and the earrings and the nails painted is how you're expressing yourself. And I know that that can feel more personal. And so I told him, look, people who say mean things, they either know that it's mean and that's just shitty on them, or they don't realize that it's mean because they've been taught these things. Right. If they come to you and say ear piercings and colored nails are only for girls, then that means that that's what they're getting at their home. And so anything that goes outside of that is going to be weird for them. And so I told him that, like, whatever that is. And at worst case, if they say anything, you look at them dead in the eye and you say, who hurt you?
Yeah.
And if that's what we resort to, that's what we resort to. But that is all. He's 7.
I love it.
Second grade.
I fucking love it. And second's tough. It really is. Because I remember Charlie being incredibly anxious about her peers at that age. I noticed, like, she doesn't tell me shit in the moment. Like, she processes on her own and whatever. And I'm like, there's part of me, it's like, I'm going to get blamed for this. And you never even fucking tell me. But, you know, like, stuff's always happening that I don't hear about till late. But I try really hard to just give perspective on anything that I can, because I know this child is sitting insulary and like creating her own filters and filling in the blanks with her limited knowledge, the way we all do if we don't have someone to walk us through really important emotional developmental milestones. But if you don't tell me what's going on, how am I going to help?
I can't help. Exactly. And that's what I think is a lesson for all of us, right? Like, even in our adulthood, when you and I were talking about expectations and expectation management, these types of things are going to be everything for us. And unless someone else can give us perspective that we wouldn't have known, we aren't going to get there. Right? Like, I very much inherited my mom's more emotionally driven thought processes. right? Very visceral, very raw, very in the moment. And then the logic kicks in later, but only after it's like shoved at me.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
So, and my sister is so logical that I want to be more like her. I respect it. I love her perspective. And back in the day, I used to be so resistant to it, whereas now I'll call her and be like, "Hey, like, am I the asshole? Like, tell me, like, was this too much of an emotional response? Where am I at?" And within the work that I'm, of course, doing within my own anger management and these types of things, that is so helpful for me to get these other perspectives. And if any of us are just leading with what feels right to us in the moment, we confuse our intuition with what our fears are telling us, what our emotions and our
Right.
defenses and our
Right.
wounds are telling us. And that's where I think this is why they say, like, kids of mental health professionals, like anyone within the space, are the most notoriously fucked up.
Yeah.
We overthink everything. I see one thing and I'm like, "Oh, this is in his adulthood." I was Googling when psychopathy presents when my kid was like 4 and hit me in the face and was like, "No, I'm not sorry." And so there's just a lot of these things that come through, and it's just like, if
I
we
love
just talk
people
to
who
each
do
other about
that.
what's happening. It's oh, do you?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
Not
wait,
over,
how do we
not
not?
there were some things that I knew. So like the hitting thing, I must have heard it in one of my childhood development classes or something, because I was like, oh, this is expected. Okay, great. But fuck yeah, there's all kinds of shit where I'm like, how do you know if?
100%. And I was not, so I have this whole theory that some of us are born to be partners, some of us are born to be parents, and some are just neither. And while we can still be both, there is still one where we predominantly lean into. And I was most definitely born to be a partner. Parenting does not
Mm,
come naturally to me. I don't like kids that I don't know, like,
me
personally.
too. Me too.
Never babysat. I don't see babies and are like, "Oh, give me." I'm like, "They're cute from afar, but, like,
Yeah,
I'm
please
good."
keep it over there. I have interest in feeding your baby or changing his diaper or anything, but I want to look at it a little
0.
bit if you're going to sit there. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, like, I'll cuckoo at it, but, like, there's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
nothing more than that.
It doesn't go to my heart and be like,
No.
my husband will be like, that makes my ovaries hurt when he sees other babies. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
he'll say that. And I'm like, I don't have that, honey. I don't have a real, mm-mm.
No, I see that and I'm like, "Thank goodness my husband got a vasectomy." Like, we are good to
I'm
go.
like, no
And that's where
more.
there is that about, like, leaning into and recognizing. When I think about parenting and when I think about having another child, I think of mostly the hardships because these things come harder to me. They don't come as naturally. My sister's the room parent, the Girl Scout parent, the Cub Scout parent, and I genuinely don't even know how she does all of it and works a full-time job, and, like, it's wild. And also, even if I knew that I could, I just don't
I
want
wouldn't
to.
want to. No,
Like, that
I
doesn't bring
could,
me joy.
and I don't want to. Yeah. I've come to a
Mm-mm.
hard line on that too, where I'm like, I don't ever want to be like stay at home mom girl again. Like I did stay at home
Yeah.
for the first 4 years or something of my boys, but like it was not enjoyable. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And this year, like now that I'm like self-employed and I could build that into my schedule, I really had to look at myself and be like, but it does not give me joy. First of all, school environments are very triggering for me because of the experiences that I had in the school environment.
Right.
And also the noise level is not good for my nervous system. Like I'm just now to like in the last 6 months able to be calm and not electric and just, you know, chill. But as soon as I'm back in all that noise level and the way you have to give in a school environment, it's too much for me. And so
Yep.
I did one time. I went up there to help with the little school store. The shit talk and complaining that I don't want it. And the fucking power struggle between parent who only identifies as being a mom and me, real different. And I'm like, I'm not in competition with you. Will you please fucking stop? Please, can we just be
I
real?
know.
Can get like just fucking I can tell who you are. I know exactly who you are. So all of
Yeah.
this shit that you're trying to front on me with, you're annoying the shit out of me. And I don't want to feel this because it's hard for me to just be like, she's a human, until after I leave. But in the moment, I'm like, you're ruining my vibe. Like, I was in a good mood, and this is really bringing it down, because it's that annoying nitpicking little, this is how I prove that I'm the best parent in this building. And I'm like, I'll fucking give you that title. I am not. I am the person who says,
it's yours.
I'm fucking up on the daily. I'm doing my best. Like, I'm just now able to not carry shame over the fact that, like, some days I really suck as a mom. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm trying. That's all I care about, is that I'm trying.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I'm a firm believer that a lot of that is just facade. The majority of the people that I know that live their life in that way are just so hyper aware of the fact that they don't have it all together, and nobody really tells them that they're doing a good job. So they go out of their way to make sure that you know that they think that they're doing a good job. And then it becomes all about external reward, external, gratification, and external reassurance, and those types of things. And it's hard. It's similar to, like, working for yourself is feast or famine. And during my feast months, I am untouchable.
Oh, you can't tell me shit.
Tell me anything. And I'm not even, like, just walking around.
No, it's just it's just
who I am.
Yes.
Put me on every podcast, put me on every interview, And then on the famine months,
a little fragile
on earth. It's harder for me to take criticism. And also, that's my work to do, to determine whether, like, my worth and my value is only determinant upon my revenue. And also, my entire industry is based on other people's willingness to do the work on themselves.
Yeah.
There's only so much I can do. And so there's just so much of this push and pull. And that's kind of what I see. Is one of my very best girlfriends in the world. We've known each other since junior high. We've stayed crazy close. And when I stopped being a stay-at-home parent, there was a shift in her. And
she couldn't identify with you anymore.
Yeah. And I couldn't either. Right. And so she always knew that she wanted to be a parent, doesn't understand why anyone wouldn't want to be. She was born to be a parent. And I wasn't. And so
I wasn't either.
Relationship kind of slowly fizzled into, I still love this woman. If either one of us ever need anything, that we're there. No doubt.
Absolutely.
It's just not what it was. And now we can't quite relate. And when we finally had, like, this sit down talk about this, that's kind of what she shared, was that a lot of people don't value stay-at-home moms. They don't see how hard it is. They think that I just have a meal ticket and my husband, I'm sitting around eating bonbons all day. Right. And nobody sees how hard this really is, but everyone gives praise to the working mother. And not to me, as if this is the lazy choice. And so we really talk that through, and it makes so much sense that we're all just trying to protect our wounds and trying to prevent the further picking of scabs and bleeding. And that's usually what we get, are these parents who present in these ways, are these women who, and men really, who just present like they are just God's gift. And there's nothing else, just because no one has ever told them that they're doing a good enough job.
And that's where, like, later after the fact, I will have so much compassion, because I've known this forever, that nobody who is solid in their belief of anything feels the need to defend that belief. So that's that. I've known that since I was a young adult. But man, in the moment, like, I'm like, that's all I can think is, like, you're so fucking full of shit. Shut the fuck up, because it annoys the shit out of me. Like, what if we just skipped this part and you could make an actual connection with me? Because I am the shit and I could change your life just by being your friend. But, like, you're over here in competition with me. And I don't care. I'm not going to take it personally. I'm just annoyed because I was just trying to fucking feel good about the fact that I was volunteering at my fucking kid's school, but you got to be over here trying to run shit, and I have issues with authority. So don't tell me what to fucking do. But it's so hard, because I know my friends dream of the day of being a grandma, and I'm at this place where I'm like, if none of my kids had kids, I'd be so fucking fine with that. I would be so fucking fine, because there's this part of me that's like, A, I don't know if we need any more lineage. And B, I don't want to watch my failures play out in your parenting journey. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm not going to be the bitch ass who's constantly, but it will be hard to watch if you're just like a complete fucking psycho or something. But, like, I'm like, having kids, like, obviously I don't have any regrets over having kids, but like I'm like I wouldn't have if I had known how terrible I was going to be at it for so many years. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I like my kids, they go back and forth between like you sucked, but like you weren't the worst parent. I don't know why you're so like hard on yourself. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, probably cuz when you're mad, the shit you say is pretty mean."
You remember more than they do, though. Yeah.
And I'm
Mhm.
like, well, that's weird because last week, like my middle kid, I did every fucking thing I could to just like, I made a decision because he's got all these diagnoses now, but at the time I was all scared of medicine and shit. So,
Mhm.
um, I did my very best because the way people responded to him was not in a way that showed him he's valuable as a human because of his behavior. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a decision right now. He's never gonna question whether or not I fucking love him because I have a brother who he reminded me a lot of, who's now schizophrenic and homeless. And
Oh,
I
man.
I, I remember the experiences as children. I didn't ever want my child to go through that. And now this motherfucker want to be like, you were way too easy on me. And I said, well, part of that
Wow.
is because it became very apparent very early that I could beat the shit out of you and it probably wouldn't make a fucking difference. I never
Mm.
tried that theory, but like you were pretty fucking headstrong. But then like he's a Libra moon, and this TikTok the other day was like, here's what I know about your mom based off your moon sign. And said Libra moon. Oh, your mama let you get by way too much. And I was like, fuck you. I'm like scrolling through. And then I was like, it hurt me so much that he said that because I was like,
Mm.
I was fucking trying so hard. Like I gave you the exact opposite of what I gave your brother, which was hypercritical mom who's walking around saying,
Yep.
sorry, Jesus, sorry, God, anytime you fucking made a mistake, because that's what I did to
Yeah.
him. But you,
Mm.
I'm like, be you, Jake, love yourself. And blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I was too easy on you. And that it was that moment that I was like, this is our soul's purpose, is to be fucked up by our parents and get through it and overcome it and go show people how to do that, because I'm not carrying this shit anymore. That is not my weight anymore. I did my best. Like
Yeah.
with him, I was never ashamed of the choices I made because they came
Yeah.
purely from a place of love. I learned how to communicate my expectations. Like I'm not a lecturer. I sat and I learned like how to be like, what am I actually trying to get across? If I take away the fear and I take away any morality that I signed, what am I actually trying to say? And with my boys, I mean, I do this for Charlie too, but she's only 10. But like, I got to a place where it was 1.5, 2 sentences of like, if I did give a consequence, like, well, this is what happened. I'm giving this consequence for this reason, because I don't just
Yep.
give them to punish. Like it's like, because, and it's always because I'm like, because I can't trust you to not do dumb shit if I don't. And so
Mhm.
like I'm doing this for you, not to you. And I know that's not how it feels, but I need you to know I'm not just assigning an arbitrary consequence so that you feel punished. I know you don't learn that way. This isn't about you learning a lesson. It's not about me teaching you shit. It's just about like, and now we have to close the reins a little bit until you get some trust marbles back. And
Mhm.
right now he has 0, but that's fine. Like he's almost 18, and we're real glad about it. We're real glad because we're about to graduate from high school, and then this part of our journey is done.
Yeah.
But
No, I mean, oh, gosh, it really is just so hard, and that's why I heard that once, because it was that we grow up with our first, and then we get to raise the
mhm,
rest, however many, if you have more than one, and it's so true, and that's where it's every time I do look back and I remember times that my son was affected that he likely doesn't have any long-term memory of, but he was definitely witness to, and so we know that, like, some neurons fired together, and those are
mhm,
pretty, well wired together. There's also that part of I don't enjoy showing them a wounded parent, but what I do enjoy is being able to show them how to work through it and the
mhm.
work that I'm doing on myself, and because parents who present as perfect, their kids don't know what to do if they aren't.
Yeah,
And so I do think that there's a lot of benefit from showing like, "Hey, like, I was not the best, most regulated role model for you. I wasn't
right.
the best disciplinarian or the guide or the mentor," whatever it is that we needed at the time. And here's what I learned about that, and here's what I'm doing with it. And so the amount of times that I apologize to my kids and or will apologize to my husband in front of my kids. And
Mm,
even if the kids were at school when my husband and I had a conflict, he and I might repair before they get back. But even if we don't, we will go to them and say, hey, Papa and I got into an argument while you guys were at school. We're about to make peace. Do you want to be here for it and like learn how to do this? And they say yes. And we're like, okay. So then he and I both kind of go back. Sometimes we get hot again and then they get to see like that go up and down. But that's really what I'm trying to show them is not just the argument and then we make peace in private and then we go about it as if nothing happened or
right.
acting like they can't hear us through walls. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
this that I'm really just trying to show them that the amount of people, the amount of men primarily that I work with who are coming to see me for anger management, the vast majority of them have perfectionist tendency ideologies within them because they weren't allowed to make mistakes. They weren't allowed to
Right.
show emotion. They had to be this like perfectly good man of the house kind of deal. And they don't know what to do if they're not meeting that expectation. They don't know that it's the rule to not meet that
Right.
expectation,
Right.
not
Oh,
the
yeah,
exception.
that you're not just like a fuck up because you can't. And this is
Right.
where like it hurts my heart for women to be like uncaring about like this part of men's experiences is
Yeah.
because like if you can understand that your husband has the same fears as you and like that perfectionist wound, especially like, I'm the good girl of my family. So like good girls, that's the thing is you got to be perfect. You got to be perfect. You got to be perfect. And then especially if you were raised in a traumatic environment, that hypervigilance of trying to anticipate everyone's needs and just, like, oh, she stepped a little bit heavier. So I know what to do now to make sure that peace
Yep.
remains in this house. Men went through that too. And
Yes.
and again, like if you want to use any groups of people, whatever lens you're viewing through, it has to be less us and them and more like the us in them.
All of
It
us.
has to
Yeah.
be because we are all experiencing the same shit. Of course, it looks different from a man's lens and a woman's lens, but that doesn't mean that it actually is. When you scrape away, you clean off some shit, there it is. Perfectionism runs deep. And like, I am still finding sneaky ways that it pops up. And I have this male friend who doesn't listen to a lot of the things I say. So like, can't, process some of it, but
Mhm.
I'm always like his whole thing is like, I want to feel like a good man. And because of the particular set of mistakes that I have made, I can't feel like a good man. And I'm like, what if a good man just like knows when he did something wrong and does his best? What if a good man loves in the way that he knows how to love? Like what if you redefined what a good man is?
Mhm.
Because like men, especially who identify as sex addicts, that label drives me fucking crazy because I'm like, well, actually, I think they're probably dopamine addicts and this is their chosen form to receive the dopamine because it comes along with adrenaline and other chemicals, like versus
Yep.
like, other lower risk activities.
Yeah.
I'm like, what if you just like quit resisting all of your normal human shit? But see, some of that's religious trauma because like he'll be like, well, I mean, it's already a sin if I'm thinking of it, so I might as well do it kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, can't help you there, babe,
That's
because
a
like I
slippery
don't,
slope.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't believe in any of that shit. So like I don't know how to help you with that.
Yeah.
But like, it's hard for him, like because he thinks everything's all or nothing, because that's what perfectionism is. It took
Yeah.
me a fucking million years to understand that my all or nothing attitude was really, if I can't do it perfect, I don't want to do it at all.
Yes.
But men do this too. And I
We
think
all do.
that's probably like my biggest hurt for the things that I have done in my marriages, is the expectation of perfection from them, because I hated in me how imperfect I was. And
Right.
so if I could judge the shit out of my spouse for everything he was doing wrong, I don't have to deal with the fact that I hate myself for not doing anything right.
Right. Projection is everything. And that's oh God, it's just such a hard thing too because it's yes, redefining these things. So then when we do talk about like being a good mom, I also never asked myself, what does that even mean? Right? Like,
Right.
how would I define that for me? And I know that we all have different views about the world and the universe and why we're here and what the meaning of life is and religion versus not versus whatever. There is still that part about as much as we know, we don't know. And so in my mind, I'm not a very religious person. I'm more spiritual, if anything, very much within the universe and my ancestry and these types of things. There's also that I if I don't know, I'm going to lead my life based on the version that makes the most sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if this God is not going to understand my mistakes and do these types of, whatever this is, then that's not my God.
That's where I had to
We kind
get.
of get to manifest these own things for ourselves, right? And so whenever it comes to the sex addiction, any sort of addiction, right? We are mainly focused on what they are doing in order to cope.
Right.
Anger is just as addictive as any of these types of things. That's why
Oh,
my husband
absolutely.
is called a recovering alcoholic instead of a trauma survivor, right? Because we
Right.
as a society, we place so much focus and emphasis on what we use to run away from ourselves instead of what we're actually running away from or running
Right.
toward.
Right.
And that's
Absolutely. God,
where
that's such a beautiful way to put that.
I'd imagine that's where the sex addiction upset comes from, is that
Oh,
that's where it
absolutely.
originates.
Well, because they want it to be not him per se. I mean, he would say
Mhm.
like, but I have gotten him to say like he's addicted to chaos. Like it's not about that,
Sure.
and he's starting to unravel like some what that means. But I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine as long as you're not calling yourself a fucking sex addict. And
Yeah.
because it drives me crazy. And I'll be really honest, the 12-step program drives me crazy a little bit, having
Mm,
grown up in it because of my, parents attending the meetings and whatever. I get it, but I also think that there are other ways, like that you don't have to do it. I think in some places it's kind of predatory, like in some of the clubhouses that I've been in.
yeah.
But I also think whatever works for you is just fine as long as you're not like assuming this is the only way, like, because there are some forms of harm reduction that work for some addictions. and
Absolutely.
and also like so much of your desire to use that substance that you know that you can't use correctly will go away when you deal with the fucking trauma. I know
Yeah.
that, like I've done a lot of shit, and all of it, sex, drugs, alcohol, all of it
Yeah.
was directly related to the fact that I didn't know how to fucking sit in a room by myself, and all of the
Yes.
trauma and all of the whatever. But now I'm like, oh my God, I got to give my time to someone else. Shit, I love being alone, but I'm not
Yeah.
sitting in this constant state of buzzing electricity that I'm trying to calm down. I mean,
Yeah.
I do use weed, but like, I don't, and I don't give a shit that I do. Like for a while, I was afraid to talk
Mm.
about that. And I'm like, I'm just
Mm.
getting real open and honest. Cause if you're not my people, you can just go, like, that's fine. But I think it really just like our tendency to use these specific labels. That's why I hate the fucking DSM and I don't want to diagnose people with shit because
Yep.
like I've seen it. Like one of my son's his best friend, what he would say his best friend, former roommate until he moved back home to go to college. I remember her being like, yeah, so I was diagnosed with bipolar. So that makes so much sense, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, yeah. I didn't say
Mhm.
shit. And I was just real supportive. And then 3 years later, she was diagnosed ADHD. Like she
Mhm.
was like, oh, and so she got on medication, and weird how all those other symptoms like went. Whatever. I just think we got a lot of shit going on in our brains, and we don't have to like label it all. Yeah, I would have absolutely been labeled with every personality disorder there is. Absolutely.
Yep.
Every one of them. I'm not kidding. I had so many fucking narcissistic tendencies. I would have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Absolutely, I would
I
have.
mean, it's bred from trauma. Yeah.
Right. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm doing all of these things, like whatever. And that's the whole thing. They're personality disorders. They're not a psychiatric disorder. Like that's
Mm.
not a part of my brain chemistry, except for that the way I respond to triggers. So
Yep.
yes, but like, there's not medicine for that, bitch. So, why do we even need this label? I hate that shit. But
It's just
I'm so glad
annoying.
I didn't take on any of those, because
Yeah.
I could just be like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And learn how to grow through it. And learning about my shame, weird. Learning that every fucking voice that I was hearing in my head was not dissociative identity. I'm glad I never thought that about myself, but some people do. And I was a little worried that I was schizophrenic, because they were getting louder in my mental health crisis. The narratives were very loud and they were fighting with each other. And I was like, this isn't normal, I don't think. But I learned it's just archetypes
Yeah.
of shame that are just like fighting
Yeah.
all the time. And now they're quiet. Weird.
No, and that's so I think it's very similar with AA with these diagnoses, right? Like I'm on multiple big pharma meds, right? For various things, trying to find my baseline and then taper off
Mm-hmm.
and figure out what to do with it, right? There is a difference between utilizing this label to help me understand more about myself and
Right.
then break it down into the minutia of the symptomology of these types of things that are coming through. In the same way that my husband needs AA. He
Right.
benefits greatly from it, and it's because he picks and chooses his meetings based on who his people are. His
Mm-hmm.
first sponsor was very old school, very by the book, very religious. Didn't work for him. He, of course,
Right.
he was with him for I think the first 18 months or so, and then he switched, right? And now he doesn't have a sponsor because he doesn't quite feel the need for it yet, but he's searching it, right? So there's plenty of these things, but when I look at my diagnoses, and if I were to just identify as that diagnosis, then I'm not
Right.
taking my power. I'm not living within it. I'm a victim to yet another part of the world. Instead of saying, okay, well, I have these symptoms of ADHD. This makes sense. This medication definitely helps me. What is it helping me do? Is there another way
Right.
to facilitate that? In the same way
Right.
that I have a PCOS diagnosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and the first answer was, let's put you on hormones.
Mm-hmm.
But my body never liked birth control. This doesn't work for me. So what's the alternative? You stop eating inflammatory foods. So I went gluten and
Right.
dairy free for 2
Mm-hmm.
years, and I'm going into my full second year, uh, full third year rather, of gluten and dairy free. And now I'm incorporating dairy, and hey, guess what? My PCOS symptoms are no longer. And
Yeah.
so I think that there's a good thing in that my husband found AA, people find these things, they get these diagnoses, and it finally is like, "Oh, this makes sense. I'm
Yeah.
not
Because
just this
sometimes,
deeply
yes.
wounded, problematic human."
Yes.
And then what do you do about it? Do you live in that? And that's why AA, I think, is so problematic, because then it's like, "Well, I'm an alcoholic. What do you want from me? It's a disease.
Well, the
It's just
first
how
step
it
is to say
is."
I'm completely powerless. And some of my shit about that really is my childhood trauma. But
Sure.
I don't think anyone's completely powerless to anything. So to
Until yeah.
submit all of your power over and say, I'm completely powerless to this drug. I mean, yes, I can see, like, what if you just revise the way you said that? Like, I hate the first step. I just fucking
Yeah.
hate it. I get
Yeah.
you need to admit you have a problem, but the first step shouldn't be like, I hand over all my power. I just like, I would love if it was revised to like, I can't drink like everybody else. Like my
Well, and
body
I
says,
also
let's
think
do it this way.
yeah, and I think that there's a part there about, like, I am I am powerless over what has happened to me thus far and how these things wired in my brain, right? Like,
Hmm.
I'm not to blame for them, and I'm responsible for them. So,
Yeah.
yes, I am powerless over how I've gotten here,
Yeah.
and now here is where my power comes in. Here's what I get to
Hmm.
do about it. It's not that I can't do this, it's that I'm choosing actively not to because it doesn't serve me, it doesn't benefit me.
Right. When I
And
do
that's kind
that,
of
I
what I
don't
think
make
this
good
is.
choices. Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Right, and that's just like with the anger management, and we haven't gotten into this yet, but my background is forensics. My master's is in forensic psychology. I went into prison system, primarily fascinated by, sex offense. So I
Okay.
was in a prison of all adult male sex offenders in Massachusetts, and that's where I got so deeply disenchanted with the therapy world. Because when I'm working in a
Yes.
prison, there's lifetime commitments, there's many of them are not getting out, and also many of them are victims of this same thing, and they're just perpetuating patterns that they were conditioned to expect, right? And so
Hmm.
that's kind of where I was that I'm like, "Okay, I'm in this prison, they're not getting out. I'm going into their mental health, talking to them about their day-to-day, learning about their offenses and why they committed and these types of things. And then what?
Yeah,
Like,
what
what
am
do
I
we
gonna do
do
with all
about this?
this? Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I was like, okay, well, if they are offending based on the offense done to them, then this seems like a prevention model. And so then I kind of just started looking, like really paying a lot of attention. And my schooling was phenomenal. It was a really great program. I'm so deeply grateful for it. Everyone in that program were just so wonderful and insightful. And I learned a ton. I would not be the provider that I am now had I not gone through that training. And I'm working in youth services at a juvenile lockup facility, and I'm just like, well, these kids don't have any coping skills. So
Yeah.
what do we expect of them? And that's when a lot of these things kind of started coming through for me of, oh, okay, so the therapy world isn't everything that I thought it was. It's diagnosing, submitting to insurance, and then what? And so
Right.
that's kind of where I actively chose not to get licensed. I don't wanna
Mhm.
spend more time working on diagnosing. I still
Mhm.
stay, of course, learned on what they look like and what their symptomology looks like, and I have a DSM, like, right here behind me that I reference, and we just need skills. We aren't taught emotional literacy growing up. I was learning
Mm-mm.
about igneous rock formations, but I wasn't taught about, like, "Hey, when you feel overwhelmed, here's what you can do about it. Instead of
Mhm.
punching a wall, here's how we can work through it. Hey, you heard your parents fighting, here's what you can do inside. Hey, you fought with someone, here's how you can make it better. You feel guilty, you feel shame, here's what you can do with it." And that's where everything kind of shifted for me, was that. And then I just felt like a complete and utter loser in 6 figures of debt
Oh,
for this
absolutely.
degree with this
Yeah.
whole path that I was supposed to take. And then it's just now 6 years into founding this practice that I'm finally embracing the term coach, like this title of
Right.
coach, and it really is just what I'm doing. I'm teaching life skills. This is psychoeducation. We're talking about the neurochemistry. We're talking about these things that you aren't to blame for and you are still responsible for,
Right.
right? And
Absolutely.
that's where I think a lot of this comes full circle in what I'm trying to teach my kids, and I probably try too hard because they're 7 and 5, and, like, their
You'd be
frontal lobes are, like, what,
surprised.
10%
They take
developed?
it
It's
in so
crazy.
much better than you think, man. Because whenever I was doing those lessons with kids at school, I remember the first kindergartner, I had just done a lesson in his classroom about making the problem smaller instead of bigger. Like when we're in a situation where our feelings are getting really big, what's the first step that we can do to not make this problem bigger, but to make it smaller? And then, this baby was having this giant fucking traumatic ass meltdown in the hallway. And I was gonna just like walk past because every administrator, everyone's like flocking, whatever. I was like, not my problem, baby. I'm just a counselor around here. But I was like, well, we have a relationship. I'm just gonna go see. And I walked up and I was like, hey, because is this making the problem bigger or smaller? And just like the relief that his entire body expressed, because
Yep.
first of all, we're speaking the same language. Everything you all are saying is fucking stupid because I don't know where you went to school, but this is not how you talk to a child who's escalated.
Yeah.
And all of the people crowding and just all the things. And I was like, I have this if you guys want, But like, I started to use that with every child that I saw in the red, was like, hey, is this making the problem bigger or smaller? And every fucking time what they would do is, and then cry because they fucking knew. They knew when it started they were making it bigger.
Yeah.
But how can you help me walk through making it smaller? That's co-regulation. None of us got that shit. None of us.
No.
Listen, even as a parent, when my daughter starts the shit, I'm not great at co-regulating because she is dysregulating my ass. Because I'm like, why are you
Mhm.
fucking having a tantrum over this 10-year-old? But like last night, I was like, she's just working the energy out. She's going to stop in just a minute. And I didn't say a fucking word, and it stopped so much quicker than it usually does when I'm like, wah, wah. But that's the thing, is like, when you can speak a language that a child understands, they feel so connected to you because
Yeah.
they get it. I mean, I can't even I have so many stories of little ones taking in what I said, even coming to me after to be like, I this, and so I did this, and I remembered what you said. I wrote these little like
Yeah.
children's books, and they were just basically lessons I had taught in the school, but
Yeah.
like in a story form.
Love
And
it.
the kids fucking loved it. Like
Mhm.
they still, I don't work there anymore. They still check my little books out from the library because I had them published, but they still check them out and stuff because they remember those lessons. Because
Yeah.
every opportunity that I could get, I was just sliding in a piece of information. We're coloring, painting rocks. I'm sliding in a piece of information. It's not my preference really to work with kids, but I do a little bit. I'm doing some contract work because mama got to make money. So on one week, usually on Thursdays, I go to this school, and it's not my favorite thing to do. It's really not, because they're resistant to actual therapy, so we got to play games, sneak the shit in, and I hate that shit, like.
Yep.
And then I had this third grader trying to push back and like, no, I don't want to talk about that. I was like, well, you can go back to class, baby, because we're here for a reason, like, what are you doing? But like, they get it. They really do. You don't even have to do a whole lot to be like, hey, just so you know, like, what that is that you're describing is betrayal. So it's okay for you to feel that. Like, just giving things labels for them to take with them. And they do fucking take it in. They do.
Yeah. And God, I was telling my sister yesterday that I was like, I want to come back as one of our kids. Like, everyone talks about these things, but it's more so that we really are, and given we still get loud, we still do the wrong thing, we still fuck up, right? At the end of it, though, we know how to repair, we know how to come back, we know how to kind of make things right and remedy it. And that's all that we're really trying to do. But when I originally, very back in the day, I wanted to go into marriage and family. And then in my brain, I was like, well, what if my marriage fails or my kids hate me? Like, who the fuck am I to talk to people about this, right?
Yes,
like,
I had
it's
the
like
same thought.
the doctor who tells you to stop smoking, and then you see him outside
Yeah, and
smoking
you're like,
a cigarette, right? Like, I just didn't want to do that. And so as things progressed and as my clients were bringing in their partners, then I start working with the whole families, and then, the family run businesses and all these types of things that kind of just evolved, where now my main focus is parents. Because I'm not going to sit here and tell people how to be a parent. I'm not a child development expert. I'm not anything. It's more so about, hey, here are the tools, here are the skills, here's the education that we did not get growing up. I chose a field that brought me through this, and I've been so privileged and able to see these things through and learn these lessons in my 30s. So what if we help our kids learn these lessons sooner by you learning it, and then you passing it down, and not being a do as I say, not as I do parent.
or
And instead
rub
being
some
like,
dirt on it and walk it off.
yeah, and just show what this looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's where so much of my focus has come in, because I do still have this impostery, like, who the fuck are you to talk to parents about how to parent? But that's not what I'm doing. I'm talking to people who haven't learned these things, and I'm learning as well still. I'm a couple steps ahead, and here's what I get
It's the exact
bring
same
to you
thing I
and you
say.
bring to me, right?
Yes.
And it's an exciting thing, and it does kind of it's the inverse of what I felt walking around that prison. Of like,
Yeah.
it's kinda lost cause at this point in, like, the most gentle way possible.
No, but
I
like,
don't
what
know
is the
how to
point?
do
Like,
I have any influence here at
yeah,
best, right? And so, where can this go? And it's into the next generation. So now it's like I get to have part in helping heal the next generation. And with the
absolutely.
dumpster fire that our world is in right now, this is a terrifying, terrifying existence for me to picture my children growing up in and not having the tools.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, like, oh my gosh, one night I was sitting there, I just like, I really try to like be in gratitude to me. Like, that's something that I'm growing more and more. And
Mhm.
when it first started, I was like, oh my gosh, because I always tell people, like, when you change, the world around you changes, and that's how it starts,
Everything. Yep.
And I was like, I feel the generational healing, because like my mama heart, my woman heart, like, I know what those women before me experienced. If I got what I got and they were doing their best to not give me what they got, I know I can't even imagine, nor am I going to try. I know it was so much worse for them.
Yeah.
And I feel like, even though I don't feel a debt of gratitude to any of them, I do feel like I owed it to every former version of me and any future generation to get my shit together, because like I'm not mad at her anymore. Like, in every version of me served a really important purpose, and I, like them, really did do the very best I could with what limited information I had at the
Yes.
time. And so,
Yeah.
like, I say that to clients all the time, like, well, I want you to think about the situation that you were in when you made that choice. Like, now you have this information, but did you have that at that time?
Right.
You didn't have
Right.
that. You didn't know this shit.
Mhm.
Do you actually believe that had you known any of these things, that you wouldn't have made different choices? Like, let's celebrate who she was, who got you here, because it all matters. And as
Yeah.
soon as you can make peace with everything you've ever done and just be like, it sucks. I did that and it wasn't good. But like, what more can I say about that? Like, I'm not going to keep
Yeah.
adding boulders to my shoulders to carry the rest of my life over shit that you can't fucking change, you know?
I know. And, for me, it was really hard because I erred a fuck ton and I harmed people and I made a lot of these mistakes. And so when I've noticed that when I assign the language as like I'm thinking about me currently. And for me, who I internalize everything and I like live in shame a lot of the time,
Yeah.
I felt the need to kind of separate her.
Mm-hmm.
And so that version of me, she existed, she's a part of me, she's who I, like, came from, and, when I refer to her, she has my maiden name,
Yeah.
because I did this work as a married woman who had taken on my husband's name by then,
Yeah.
and there's still even this twinge that I get whenever I say my full maiden name.
Yeah.
And there is this part about like, "Oh, she was so unhealed. Oh, she was
Yeah.
so wounded. She just didn't
Mm-hmm.
know better. She was just running away from herself, confusing chaos for excitement,
Yeah.
and didn't know what else to do with it." And so now there's more of that of like, okay, she was this part of me, she still is. What lessons did she need to learn that she just hadn't yet? What could
Yeah.
she have benefited from? What kind of narratives does she need? Who did she need in her corner at that time? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what kind of creates this version of me that this version gets to go ahead and do. And at
Right.
some point, I will start melding them back together. But for now, knowing that when I start with that just being an I, it's really hard for me to, like, push past that. But if I
Yeah.
can kind of separate her a little bit of a way and view her more from an, objective standpoint, a little bit of a bird's eye, it
Yeah.
just helps me release some of that, and then I get to focus on this one, and then the
Yeah.
future one that I'm trying to be, and what's her name,
Well,
and
see,
how can
even
I
the
work
imposter
backward?
syndrome stuff, that's the way I view it.
Oh,
I'm always like,
yeah,
this version of me that you're looking at right now is so fucking solid in my belief in what I'm doing. Like,
yeah,
I know better. It's this baby in me that,
I know.
was taught this or that and programmed to believe this or that and internalize this or that, that thinks that it's supposed to look like this if you want to do the work that I'm doing. But
Yep.
like, fuck that. I mean,
We're
it's
all
just a,
trying in
a
different
daily
ways, it's
process.
wild.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and that's where so I tend to get a lot of clients who have been in anger management before, right? And the very first day, because I don't know if I'm ever gonna get them again, right? Like, I'm not
yeah,
working with
yeah.
court order anymore, and so it's like, "Alright, I'm gonna make sure that, like, you have, like, the tokens that I need you to
Uh-huh.
take." I always start with the brain chemistry of teaching the amygdala hijack and how we have this reptilian brain, and once something gets activated, it shuts down our frontal lobe, and it's no longer an unwillingness to be, quote, unquote, "rational," it's an
Right.
incapability,
Yes, you have
and
no control
not
at
a
that point.
single one of my clients had ever been taught that.
Mm-hmm.
Been in numerous anger management programs since they were adolescents, all of this, and that's just kind of where it is, and then there's these anger management professionals who are like, "Look, I never get angry. See, you can be just
You
like."
just have to stop, count to 10, and
Uh-huh.
say woo-saw. That's all.
It's
That is
gross.
literally what I know. I
It's
know.
gross, and that's why
Yeah.
so many people are resistant to this, and that's where I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." Like, yeah, like, okay, you know that people are gonna tell you to take deep breaths, but, like, have you actually tried it? So, like,
Exactly.
let's, like,
Let's try it. I
really
want you to
recognize that
see.
some of this is good advice. A lot of it
Yes.
is rooted in good advice, it's just also that's all that they give you. As if,
Yeah,
like,
well,
if
and I
I
I
fucking know
love
that I'm
the
supposed to do that.
development. Yes, yeah, I'm fucking guilty of it. Like, because once the switch is flipped, like, you're then relying on your tools or self-control, discipline, motivation.
Survival,
And
yeah.
like, you're only given this much every day of those things. So like I gotta have a really big toolbox. But before I had no tools except for what little self-talk I had been taught about, like, don't do this, don't, but I was just trying to resist the urges that were natural in that state of being.
Of course.
So like, I'm like running from the bear and being like, don't be scared of the bear. Don't be scared of the bear. Like, whatever. No, fuck. Like, that's it. That's all you have time for.
Running for my
keep
life.
running. Yeah. But like,
Yeah.
I always tell clients that, like, hey, first of all, you haven't learned how to be fueled by love for yourself versus fueled by spite. And second of all, you are relying on the finite amount of self-control and discipline that you are given on a daily basis. And like, if you're anything like me, that shit's out the window by the time the kids go to school. Cause I was always really committed to the, send them off with love shit. But like, that was it. That like, that's the only fucking time of day you were going to get peace from me, because it took every part of my self-control and discipline to not flip my shit every fucking morning, because they're kids and they're, little bastards sometimes, and they don't
100%
follow the processes that you put into place just to avoid mornings like that. Like now I'm in this place where like, I don't force people to put their shoes in a certain place, because like I can't, it's a trigger, first of all, because my mom would lose her shit looking for shoes in the morning, the like 5 times I lived with her. But like, also, I don't really know what to do with myself at that point. Like, I don't get control. When I look for things, it pisses me off because I didn't lose it. Why am I having to like fucking put my energy into this? And it's just a whole triggery little thing. So like, I don't force you, but also like, this is why I was trying to force you to follow certain processes, because it really does make our lives better. But that's fine. You don't want to listen. So now, like in the mornings, I'm just at a place where I'm like, okay, what would happen if we're just late to school? That's not that serious. And so guess how many times it happened? Because my little people pleaser over here didn't like the feeling of being late to school. And so now she doesn't pull that shit anymore, because that morning I was getting in the red, baby. I was like, oh, about to fight a bitch, And then I was like,
we forgot we have free will.
And then I sat there and I was like, do I really care if she's late? No, I really fucking don't. Like, is it worth this just to be on time to something I don't fucking care about? No, it's not. So I was like, okay, well, just let me know when you're ready, because you're gonna be late. I'm just gonna let you know that you're about to be late, but that's fine. And then just it didn't matter. But that's a part of my toolbox, like the whole let them philosophy or whatever. Like, that's a tool. That's a tool. And so you can use that, but you have to know what it means. You can't just like give people these one-liners and think it's going to work, because then they're just resisting their natural inclinations.
Of course. And if we knew how to, we would have done.
Yes, because nobody wants to be a fucking psycho. Nobody wakes up and chooses violence. No.
Well, and that's where like the anger feels good every so often, right? Like when I get to express my anger with aggression and just like get loud and like release that energy, people who say that it doesn't feel good, I don't know. I think it feels quite good for a quick fucking second.
Very, and then very
it feels
brief,
awful.
Yes,
yeah. So then it's like, okay, well, what?
Well, the part that feels good is you're no longer in resistance. You got to let loose. You weren't trying to like shove the lid down anymore. You let the lid pop off. And of course, relieving that pressure feels really good for 5 to 20 minutes. And then it's like, I'm a piece of shit.
Okay, well, now I have to clean this shit up.
Yeah.
And that's like what it is. And that's where I think I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out exactly like where this comes from, that we're not allowed to say these things out loud. I think it's very odd. And I know that it's like, the narratives that I got was like, everyone has their shit. So like, keep your shit to yourself.
Minimalize, trivialize.
And now it's like, well, we're not doing this to commiserate. I'm not doing this to like sit within this victimhood mentality. It's more so like, oh, you lost your shit on your kids and you assume that because I do anger management that I never lose my shit on my kids. Well, I did last night. Let me tell you about it.
Yeah.
And then here's what I did to repair after my brain came back online.
Yeah.
And here's what we can do moving forward. And here's how you can forgive yourself without excusing yourself.
Everybody's got the moment where we lose our shit in one way or another. Even if you're the calmest person like my husband, like Everybody has that moment. You lost your shit and
Mhm.
it doesn't feel good. What's the next moment gonna look like? That's
Right.
the fucking part that matters. I swear to you, it's not that part where you lost your shit.
No.
It's whether you fucking double down on being a bitch or you go, back it up. Who I want
Mhm.
to be is this, and that is not who I was just a minute ago.
Right.
And I'm
And then
sorry.
here's how I can prevent that moving forward,
Mhm.
right? And that's where
Mhm.
a lot of the anger management is just like very much therapy. It's very much focused on behavioral, but that's where I'm starting to take a much more 360 approach to this, where like we're talking about your sleep, about your diet, about like all
Yes.
of these things that are coming into
Are
your
you drinking
world.
water? Because that will affect your ass.
100%. Are you just existing on Red Bull and protein
Yeah.
bars?
Oh,
Like,
honey.
what are we
Oh
doing?
my God. Well, you know, when I was living in like, well, I mean, for the first 44 years of my life, I was living in survival mode. But
Mhm.
last year, whenever I hit the mental health crisis and it was not good, starting to figure out how the fuck, if I wasn't going to like end it, how I was going to live a life that didn't feel like that anymore.
Mm, mhm.
And the last piece of the puzzle was to get off of phentermine, which I was only taking because I had been taking Adderall that wasn't prescribed to me.
Mm,
And I was only taking it once a day, but still, like, I liked that no matter how little sleep I got, I could get up in the
you
morning.
could function. Yeah.
Yes. And so, why did I need that? I don't know, except for that I had been like really tired. I had been, for the first time in my life, I hit that really hypo aroused place
Mm,
ever. And I didn't really like that because I had no energy. I liked it because I was numb and I wasn't explosive. I was real let them in a real negative way. I was real, okay, whatever. But
uh-huh.
then whenever I reached hyper arousal again, I was on all
Mm,
the time. So because I had been given the Adderall from a friend and like I didn't want to have to keep asking, I was like, how can I go
yeah.
get legal meth for myself?
Mm,
So I got on phentermine because there's weight loss doctors everywhere. Well, in like June, I was like, okay, I think I'm recognizing that this is fucking my nervous system. So, like,
mm.
this is contributing to the problem. So I stopped taking it, and it was almost immediate. Like, because I wouldn't be eating until like 6 p.m. And I'm not a
Yeah.
person who should go without at least, I don't have an appetite in the morning. So it's my natural tendency to skip. And then if I get really busy, I'll forget to eat. That's like,
Yep. Same.
don't worry, I'll make that for you in the evening, but during the
Yep.
day, like I can go out food till like 18 hours if I want to, but
Mhm.
how I present is very shitty if I do that.
Right.
So I was like, Melissa, you have to love yourself with food because I mean, I was over pretty much all the body issues. Like, I'd really made peace with I have very wild fluctuations in weight. Like I'm in the season now where I'll probably just start dropping weight
Mm.
without trying. Like it's weird. It's like,
Yeah.
through these certain months, I will gain, like I can gain 20 pounds in a week and a half. It's crazy. I can
Mm.
also lose that much in a very short amount of time without trying. It's weird. It's just
Yeah.
my body's really weird like that. But I just
Yeah.
kind of had to get used to it. I'm not chasing this body goal. I stopped that years ago. I'm really have made peace with my body. It was never about, I didn't take that shit because I wanted to lose weight. I took it for the chemicals and for
Yeah.
being awake and whatever,
The
because I was just tired
effect.
of feeling really tired.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was absolutely abusing substances and abusing my body with
Mhm.
the substances. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
fucked me up really bad. So whenever I like kind of had to stop taking it and was like, oh wow, that's a huge difference. It's like
It's
I'm not in this state
everything.
of hyper arousal anymore. Like that
Yeah.
was a real big key for me.
Well, and I think that it's that, right? Like we attribute so much of our behavior to purely just like behavior. That's just how I'm doing it, what I'm doing.
That's just who I am.
Right, but we don't realize how much these things affect us. And that's
Hmm.
why it's like when we do this work, I think that it can be so intimidating and so daunting because it's like, okay, I have to change everything about myself all at once. And like, that's just awful. And then there's the other part that even if I recognize that I don't have to change everything, now I'm going to know better. And so now I'm going to
And
have to
it's
do
gonna just
better.
like irritate me all the time that I'm
And it
not
might even
doing it.
like, it might even contribute to the shame, right? Because now I do
Yes.
know better. I'm
It
not in this
absolutely
willful
did to
bliss.
mine. Mhm.
Yes. And so then it's like, oh, absolutely. And then that's where all of my shame and my parenting and losing my shit on my kids, it's like, you know better. Why the fuck didn't you do that? You're an anger management specialist. Why are you acting in your anger and aggression? It's like, fuck. Because I'm like a human being with all sorts of chemicals running through my body all the time. But I do know
Absolutely.
that when I get adequate sleep and when I don't drink caffeine and when I cut out sugar and dyes and these types of things, it tends to go better. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where I think so much of it is that like it's likely the assumption that we need to change all of these things, but it's okay, well, maybe still have that Red Bull, but maybe do it before like 10 hours before you're going to go to sleep instead of like 3 hours
Right.
before you go to
Yeah,
sleep.
because I do
Maybe we
still
just
have an
like,
energy drink in
yeah.
the morning, but like I
Mm.
barely drink any. It literally is just like for the first like I need my brain to wake up now.
Sure.
And I don't even finish it most of the time because I'm not like trying to accomplish anything other than just to wake up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I've cut down like coffee significantly, but like I also I know I have to eat a piece of toast in the morning. Like I know that about myself.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
because that's really the only thing I can tolerate first thing. But like most of the time my husband will come in and be like,
Eat.
because he
Yeah.
knows
You're
that
not you
like
and you're hungry.
exactly. So he's like, let's just get that out the way. Here's your toast and good morning. But you know, that's fine. Like I know these things about myself. So
Yeah.
really, when you are providing that level of education to people, it is eye-opening and it changes your entire paradigm because you understand, just like I understood the first time I heard about trauma unrelated to a veteran and PTSD, that
Yes.
I had trauma and that this is how it looks. I was like, I'm not just a bad person who like is angry and mean to people. I
Mhm.
have some shit going on that I need to fix. Like
Yeah.
then I didn't feel powerless anymore. I felt like this was within my locus of control, like that there were
Yes.
things I could shift and make. I mean, it's been a very long journey, very long, but like now all the pieces kind of click together and I
Mhm.
learn new shit every day and you know, I incorporate and integrate but the number one thing for me was getting peace within my nervous system. Like I was buzzing all
Everything.
day, every day.
Yeah.
Every day. I mean, I woke up in a state of survival. I went to sleep in a state of survival. And my entire life was just fucking chaos because of my brain. And not knowing how to do anything about that was just like, I'm just a loser who doesn't
You
fucking
were
know how to talk
powerless.
to people. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then like, oh, I can change this. Like, because my husband used to say that, like, acted as if it was an active choice that I was making. And it would hurt me so fucking bad because I was like, I don't think so, because you're not dealing with the shame and the pain that I feel once the episode is done. So, like, you don't fucking
Mhm.
know. But
Mm.
it didn't feel like a choice, you know? And so then
Yeah.
whenever I was like, oh, okay, now that I have the information, I can make a choice. But at
Yeah.
the time, it was a choice between what? Screaming or not screaming. Well, I didn't have any fucking control over the reaction that I had to literally everything everyone said being a trigger to me. Every fucking thing that came out of someone's mouth
Yeah.
was a trigger. And if you weren't in my personal life, you were going to get freeze or fawn. Then I'm going to take it home and take it out on anyone I'm close to, period.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, oh God. I know it really is just so hard to do the work. And that's where it is just that of recognizing this label of understanding trauma and what that means helped drive you into, okay, what do I do about it now? And that's where I think a lot of these things come from, is that what I hear often is like, do you think that I just like woke up thinking like, ooh, let me hurt you today?
Right.
And my argument is usually, well, no, but did you wake up thinking, how can I not hurt you today? Like, that's what I want. I don't want
Damn,
this
Gina.
other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah.
I just want the awareness of the things that trigger you. I want the awareness of where your body's at. Are you moving really, like, are you even checking in with your body to know what kind of state you woke up in? Did you wake up breathing fire? I do plenty of times. Did you choose to make a big decision on a day that you were breathing fire? Maybe don't do that, right? So it's so much more about just like checking in with yourself and knowing yourself, listening to your body and what it's trying to tell you, listening to your anger and understanding its message, listening to your vices and deciding and determining what it is that you're trying to achieve from them. And then
Right.
from there, all the power.
All the
All of it.
power. All of
It's
it.
incredible.
Yeah, because if you can be more intentional and mindful just with how you want to live your life, then you get to make a lot more choices, because all I have to do is ask, what do I need in this moment, and figure it out. But that's because I have a toolbox, you know?
Yeah. No, 100%. And that's really all I'm like, that's all we're trying to do at the end of the day. Is like, okay, you were born with a hammer. Okay, great. Well, like sometimes you need a screwdriver.
Yep.
So like, come on in, let me teach you how to use it and how to like know the difference between the multiple heads of them, right? Like
Exactly.
it's literacy.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
mean,
all that
like
is
if you're willing
that
to
we're
watch a
doing.
YouTube video on how to replace a part in your washer, it's just like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm just guiding you through an experience that you're then going to be able
Yes.
to do with a little bit of reference.
Right. But then the stigma of the mental health is really hard and and it's like, yeah, like, well, surgeons don't operate on themselves. They still have to go to
Mm-hmm.
other surgeons. So like
Mm-hmm.
we can't I still have my own therapist. Every therapist should have their own therapist. Every provider should be doing their own work. And
Right.
that's kind of it. I'm talking about like not knowing if I'm fucking up my kids as I'm starting this parental shift program, right? Like this is the whole point of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I wish like so many more of us would be just willing to admit instead of giving off this guise of perfection and knowing that you're full of shit and then
Yeah.
feeling terrible about it.
And that is literally why I'm so fucking open about every struggle that I have. First of all,
Love
that's my
it.
gift, is to like experience things and share it. But also,
Yeah.
I want anyone to know, like, if you're an entrepreneur, just know the money ain't coming that fast for me either, baby. You know, like that's fine. I'm going to be open about that. Like, I am
Yeah.
very open about all of that, because I never want anyone to put me on a pedestal and think I had it easier, that I'm doing something better. Bitch, I'm 2 steps ahead of you, and that is it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And barely that if I stay stagnant.
Really,
Yeah.
really about half. But if we, in a therapeutic sense, probably a couple. I probably know a little bit more than you do, but like, how to apply it doesn't come naturally to me either.
No, but that's the whole point, is that that's just the schooling that I got. You went to school for marketing? Cool. You went to school for engineering? Cool. I don't know how to do that shit.
I
But me
can't do
not
any of
knowing
that.
those two things isn't going to spark conflict in my marriage. Right.
Right.
So like, this is just, it's just, I know different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming back on. I don't know how I'm end up, like, if I'll do 2 episodes or what. I've not really done this, so I'll let you know.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right.
Okay, well, have a great day.
Thanks. Absolutely.
Oh, hey,
you too.
if you are at all interested, the book that really helped me with my shame is called The Finding Peace Workbook. And it was kind of the key to everything for me, breaking down shame into different archetypes, because then
I love it.
I can identify what it is and shut them the fuck up. So just so you know, it was life changing.
What were your kids' books?
Oh, The School That Cried Bully, The School That Learned Kindness, The School That Said Goodbye, because we had a death. And
are they available?
Yeah, they're on Amazon.
I love it.
Or you can go to, like, my website is linked to Amazon. So, like, to the whatever. Yeah. So if you go there, they're there.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely going to check them out.
Okay.
I tend to use way too much clinical language with kids, and I need to, like, bring it to their level. And so I want some tips. Love it.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah. Okay. And if you're open to coming on my podcast, I'd love to have you too.
Oh, I'd love it. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
all right.
Cool. Well, thank you, Melissa. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Emotionally unavailable.
Hey, if you have not provided this podcast with a rating, please go do that now. If you find me on social media, you can see my link tree, and it will take you to both Spotify or Apple for you to leave a review and a rating. 5-star, obviously. So much. Okay. Also, on that link tree, you can get to my website, empoweredwithmelissahebner.org, where you can sign up for a one-on-one session with me. I'm calling these guidance sessions because I will utilize my therapeutic background along with tarot and astrological insights, if you're comfy, and guide you to the life that you're in love with. And if none of my current offers are within your budget, please don't hesitate to select the complimentary session option. I created that option as part of a commitment to my community and to access to mental health care. And I want to make sure that people are using that. So feel free to refer that link out to anyone that you want to. It is a one-time only. All of these sessions are like a one-time so that I can make a bigger impact with one-time sessions versus recurring sessions. So you can see my menu on my website, and you will also see workbooks and membership communities available. So I hope you'll check it out. Okay.
Emotionally unavailable.
INDEPE and cut.